Chapter 1. The letter that should not have been read. I received the letter at an hour when even the most ordinary things begin to feel suspicious. The evening was unnaturally quiet, so quiet that it seemed to press against the walls of my apartment, as though the city itself were holding its breath. Long before I understood why, I sensed that this silence was a warning. The envelope lay on my desk. I had no memory of bringing in the mail. It was made of thick, coarse paper, yellowed and damp to the touch, and it carried the unmistakable odor of mold and old books, of archives forgotten by time. When my fingers brushed its surface, I recoiled slightly, seized by an irrational yet vivid sensation. The envelope was warm, as if it had been held too long in a clenched hand. The name of the sender froze me in place. Alexei Melnikov. We had studied together at the university. Even then, he possessed a troubling fascination with subjects most scholars avoided: prehistoric cults, fragmentary myths without gods or heroes, traditions in which humanity played no meaningful role. After graduation, he did not vanish abruptly. Rather, he seemed to fade, as though the world itself had gradually lost the ability to remember him. The letter was brief, yet every line weighed heavily upon the mind. If you are still capable of fear, do not come. If you have already lost it, do not come all the same. I mistook ancient terrors for metaphors. Here, no one believes in legends. Here, they live with them. I do not ask for help. I leave only a trace while I still can. There was no date, no signature. At the bottom, however, was a final sentence, written in a different hand, unsteady, distorted, as if guided by something other than intention. They are not dead. They are merely too vast for death. The address named Old Pogost, a place absent from every map and registry I consulted. And yet, as I stared at those words, I felt a dreadful sense of recognition, as though I had always known where this road would lead. I did not sleep that night. With every passing hour, the truth became clearer. The letter was not an invitation. It was a testimony, left behind for someone still capable of understanding. Chapter 2. A place where time does not move forward. The journey north was long and exhausting, as though the world resisted each mile of progress. Familiar landmarks dissolved one by one. Station names became meaningless, faces indistinct, and even the sky seemed lower, heavier, burdened by unseen weight. Old Pogost did not welcome me. It endured me. The village appeared misplaced, as though erected by mistake. The houses stood at unnatural angles, obeying neither reason nor convenience. Many lacked chimneys, yet the air around them was thick with the smell of damp wood and something far older, earth that had never truly forgotten the dead. The villagers spoke little. Their eyes slid past me, never quite meeting my gaze, as though I were not a person, but an absence, an interval between more important things. One detail unsettled me above all others. There were no children, no voices, no laughter, no traces of small lives ever having existed there. When I asked about Melnikov, an elderly man slowly crossed himself and said, "He listened for too long." No one would elaborate. That night, I heard a sound beneath the wind. Not a voice, not a howl, but a rhythm, deep and deliberate, like the pulse of some immense heart buried beneath the soil. Chapter 3. records that should not have survived. Melnikov's house stood at the edge of the village, where the forest grew thin and distorted, as though reluctant to approach. The interior was not chaotic, but marked by haste, the unmistakable evidence of someone who had suddenly realized that time was no longer a resource. I found his notebooks. At first, they read like proper academic work. Catalogues of local folklore, comparisons of recurring symbols, correlations between myths and unexplained historical gaps. Gradually, however, the tone shifted. Fear is not a reaction, it is memory. We are afraid not because we do not understand, but because we understand too much. He wrote of beings that neither arrived nor departed, for they existed outside direction itself. To them, time was not a line, but a structure, one that could fold, compress, and overlap. Human history, he claimed, was merely a ripple upon the surface of their sleep. The final entries were nearly illegible. I understand now why they do not destroy us. We are a convenient form of silence. Chapter 4. The Mound That Is Not a Grave. The mound lay where the forest abruptly thinned, as if the trees refused to grow closer. Moss covered its surface, thick and ancient. When I touched it, I recoiled at once. It was warm. Worse still, it seemed to breathe. At the center of the mound was a fissure, not a crack, but a seam, too precise to be natural. From it emanated something far greater than sound, a presence, a thought without language, a consciousness that did not demand attention because it absorbed the observer into itself. In that instant, understanding came not in words, but in totality. Humanity exists only because it sleeps lightly. Chapter 5. What remains after the awakening? I returned. At least documents and witnesses insist that I did. The village of Old Pogost does not exist. Archives are empty, maps are silent. Melnikov's notebooks have vanished as though they were never written. And yet the fear remains, not sharp, not frantic, but slow and crushing, like the pressure of deep water. At times, I wake with the unsettling certainty that I was not brought back whole. I have come to understand what I realized far too late. They do not awaken suddenly. They gradually replace reality itself. When the world grows too quiet, when children disappear, when people stop asking questions, when fear gives way to indifference, that is when the sleep begins to end. I write this not as a warning. No salvation has been predusmotrino. I write because, for now, I can still remember that reality once belonged to us, and that knowledge is the most terrible thing of all.